Hey everybody, welcome to Module 4. And okay, so I don't want to scare you. Okay, that is not my job. That is not my goal. But I do want to make sure that you guys realize that we're in the middle of the semester, and this will be the hardest paper you do. Okay, it gets easier as we go from here. Uh, and I don't want you to think that this is like manufactured to be really difficult or anything. The reason this is difficult is because this is something you probably haven't done before, or probably something you haven't done at least this format. Module number 4 is comparing what they say. In other words, what we want to do is we want to take really critical looks at two different works and then compare and contrast them. How are they similar? How are they different? That's our job. Now, the reason this is a little bit more difficult is because it does require some skills that you may not be familiar with, or probably maybe haven't done in this exact format. Okay. And so I like to be upfront with everybody on this. This will take a little bit of extra effort for many of you, and that's fine. It's not undoable, but it's just something I like to put out there first. Module number 4 is builds on what we did with our read, summarize, and react. Because now we're going to take this work and we're going to look at it and we're going to critically read it. And what that means is we're going to go beyond it says this or I feel this. We're going to look in there and say, okay, why did they do this? What was the purpose of this? What? Um, why would somebody do this? And then when I look at this and then I look at how somebody else did it, are there similarities? Are there differences? What do I see? And again, beyond the obvious, right? Like McDonald's and Burger King, they both serve cheeseburgers, fries, and shakes. Okay. What is the difference between them? Well, one is griddle and one is flame broiled. Okay. Why does that matter? What is the significance of that? What does that suggest? What does that imply about the store, about the food, about the customers, about the prices, right? And so now we start to break this down, and that's critical thinking. Okay, that's what we're really going to be looking at here. So we've got some information about what all we're going to be doing in module 4, and we're building on that. They say we're looking at that piece of work. This is what they say. This is what we have. This is what we're working on. Okay. So let's take a look at what all we got going on here. And the big piece for this module is the comparative analysis first draft, writing project number 2. Okay. So like we did last time, you're going to turn in part of your draft. We'll read it, get some feedback, help you make some places where, help you get a little bit better and stronger for your final draft. Okay. Here are the instructions for what you're going to do. Your final essay will be somewhere around 1,000 words. Okay, the final version. You're going to take 2 of the closed theme readings. So take 2 of those readings off of our list. Okay, and you may use one of them that you've already read. That's fine. Okay, like the one that you use for Module A, that would be perfectly acceptable. Okay, they could be 2 new ones. Okay, no big deal. I want you to find 2 of them. Now, they do have to have some relationship, okay? So you can't, like, one about food deserts and one about eating insects, because there's not a lot of overlap between them, right? So find something that there is a connection between. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be very critical, and we're going to be we're going to look at the fine points of those 2, okay? We're going to be very careful looking. We're going to look very carefully at these things. So we want to look at the fine details of these things. All right. When we look at this critical analysis or this comparative analysis, we're really looking at 3 elements. Okay. Here's how they're the same. Here's how they're different. But the third piece, and this is the piece which makes this difficult, is why does it matter? Okay. Why does it matter? If I go back to my example that I used earlier, talking about McDonald's and Burger King, right? McDonald's is very much into fast, cheap, right? They want you in, they want you out. They want to keep the prices as low as possible. Burger King, because they use that flame, they can go a little slower. They go slower. It does take longer, okay? But they also charge more. So where you can go to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger at, $1.50, at Burger King you're paying 2.50. And the reason that is significant then is the fact that Burger King can get away with that because they do a different process and people know I'm going to pay more to go there. And it's part of how they it's part of how they structured it, right? That's that critical analysis piece. It's not just here's what one does, here's what the other does. It's why does it matter? What is the significance? What does it really tell, right? And so when we look at these two articles, we really want to dive into why does this article talk about it this way where this article doesn't? Or this article really makes a better case because, right? And so we want to be able to really look into those fine details. Now, a lot of times in your other classes or in your rest of your college career or whatever, you will see this assignment fairly regularly. It won't be called necessarily comparative analysis, but it'll be like, here's two situations. What do you see? Right? Like you're in an early childhood development class, right? Here's two kids present with these issues. What do you see? And that what do you see is the critical analysis part, right? Is that part of why is there a difference? The one kid does this, one kid does this. Why? And that's that third element, okay? So it does walk you through how to do this essay. We start off with a really strong analytical thesis statement. The arrangement, there's some latitude in how you do this. Generally speaking, you give like a really quick overview of number one, you give a really quick overview of number two, you identify a key, significant, important similarity or difference, and then you analyze that. Why is that important? What does it really say about the articles? What does it really say about this, right? So, if you follow that format, you're looking at like 6 paragraphs, introduction, summary, identify that important element that you're going to really focus on, and then that analysis piece, all right? You will use either APA or MLA style on this. Either one is fine. Because you are now going to be working with two different texts, it's going to be really important to make sure that you're very clear about what text you're getting information from and that you are doing those in-text citations. Because this is now more of a formal paper, it's an analysis, we are not going to use the first person. Now, remember the first paper, we were able to use that because it was your reaction to the text, right? We're getting rid of that now. So no first person. No, I think, we do this, we should think. Don't go, just avoid all that first person. I would also suggest for the best, strongest tone, avoid the second person as well. So we'll get rid of the yous as well. And just like last time, the expectation is half of the draft. The idea, again, is that we can say, okay, are we on the right path or not, right? But the more of the paper you turn in, the more feedback you're going to be able to get. And so I know that people sometimes they'll turn in half a draft and they get like this first part and they've got some direction, but then the second part maybe they struggle with, right? The expectation is half. So you do need to do half, but the more of the paper you turn in, the better for you. And then we will turn in the final version of this on module number 7. We do have, this is an interesting piece. So we go into some pieces that help you break down the text, right? There's some different activities that do they say, those different strategies. And then the video about reading actively, annotating text. So when we ask you to read something, I know a lot of times people just breeze through it. Done. I read. What'd you get out of it? I don't know. I don't know what it said. Okay. We know that if we can get you to slow down, you're going to get more out of the text. We also know that the more we can get your hands onto the text, the more you can manipulate the text, the more you're going to retain. And then that also slows you down. And we know that those two things help you retain more information. I mean, think about this. If somebody's describing how to do something, okay, you do this, this, and this. Here's the tools. See it. It's really hard to do because you don't have any experience. You kind of are like, you have those ideas in your head, all right, but you're not really sure. But if we like, here's how we do it, I let you do a piece and we explain some things and like, okay, which hammer are you going to use, which nail, which whatever, right? And if I stop you along the way, those things are going to stick with you better. So this talks to you about how to annotate text. Um, I think that this is a skill that if once you feel very comfortable with, that you'll be able to use in all of your other classes and it'll help you across the board, not just in this class. Okay. So you got that video there. Excuse me. We also have the module number 4 closed reading theme check-in. And this is where we would ask you to pick 2 readings that you have not yet read. Now, in this, if you pick 2 new texts to do your comparative analysis on, you can do this. You can use those for here, right? If it is like one text and that, like you're going to use your text from module number 2 and then a new text, okay, then you need to find another text to read for this one, right? So we want 2 fresh texts, okay? Or they can be 2 new, completely different ones, right? Like I said before, the idea of this closed reading check-in is just that we know that you're reading different texts because as you go through, because there's so many different texts to be looking at, you're not very familiar with them. And in the end, when you're trying to pick what your idea of your research paper is, this just gives you some better kind of, it gives you more to work with, right? You're more familiar with more text. Again, this is a completion grade, but some of you have really done some really good in-depth thinking and really like what you have been doing with some of your check-ins up to this point. Then we have our first discussion board. Again, like we talked about before, the discussion boards, the best course of action is to post early in the week and then do your replies later to get the most possible points. You're replying to more than the minimum of 2, that you are on multiple days, that you're showing that you're coming in and out of that conversation, okay? And that each of your posts stand on their own. They don't do the, yeah, that was a good idea, but they expand on that. They ask questions, they build and continue the conversation. For our discussion board this week, what we have is a panel discussion. And this is a little bit different because we're going to ask you to take one of the readings that you did from the check-in and write a response, write a post in that author's voice. So think about how they would talk, how they would explain things. Would it be factual? What kind of examples? Would it be emotional? How would they express that? Do they use big language, little language, whatever? We want you to come across as that person, okay? This is a little bit fun because you do get to put your feet in someone else's shoes for a little bit, right? And then the responses that you're going to do is, how do you think they did? What was it about that helped capture that that allowed you to really see that person come through there? So again, I think that part of this discussion board is to like start sharing out those ideas so that like, what reading should I pick? Oh, wow, somebody wrote about this one here. So I'm kind of, spreading the workload and I'm becoming more familiar with more readings. But it also is to be able to put myself in an author's shoes and say, okay, what were they doing? How did they create this message? And then I think by extension, what we kind of start to look at is when I read something and I say, that was really effective, I can ask myself, why? Why was that effective? And what are the things in that I can imitate when I write? Or that wasn't effective, what am I not going to do, right? So it really works on a lot of different levels for us. We do have this slideshow about comparing text. It walks you through that process. Again, we're looking for these are the similarities, these are the differences, and then the analysis is why. Why is that important or significant, right? If you think about the news, we get these things all the time, right? Like, this is the worst whatever since 19 whatever, right? And what they're doing is they're comparing those 2 things. And we have to be able to ask ourselves, is that an apt comparison or not? This slideshow will walk you through some of those processes. A couple things that I like to add in about this is just kind of the process of how you do that comparison. There's two different ways. You could like number A, these are the things, and number B, and these are the things, right? And then you can talk about the overlap, or you can go point by point. This one talked about this one talked about this one talked about this one talked about this. And you kind of get a feel for like which one is going to be best for your audience. If you do point by point, it kind of feels like a ping pong match or a tennis match where you're going back and forth, back and forth. So that maybe in a shorter work, that'd be better. If you're doing something longer, think about like here's all of A, here's all of B, and then you do that analysis. Okay. But the thing is now A starts to get kind of farther away a little bit. And so you're kind of hoping that your audience remembers all that. But yeah, you think about the process that works best for your situation, but think about it's not just the identifying, it's the explanation, right? It's not just I found three similarities. I explained why it's important to note those. We do have this comparative observation worksheet. This is something new that was added in for us. And this is not a graded assignment, so you don't have to turn this in anywhere, okay? But this just helps you walk through the process of identifying those key elements, and then why is it interesting, why is it important, right? You can use this sheet, you can download this and use this, you can create your own document. This is not a graded assignment, you're not turning this in somewhere, okay? But it does help you walk through some of those pieces to help you attack this a little bit better, okay? So I do point that out to you. Oh, whoops, looks like I skipped over some pages there. I will point that out to you. It is helpful, okay? And so definitely try to use that. Then we have where you turn in your half draft, okay? Again, most of you haven't had any trouble turning those things in, but if you do, email it to me and make sure that you get it turned in on time. That's the key element. Then we can help you get it into the right place if we need to. But that's important, okay? Again, you can, once you've linked your Google Drive, you can just do the Google Doc, or you can put in a Word doc. You can submit a PDF, but it's not the best route just because it's harder for me to make some comments and notations on. And then the final piece that we have is a second discussion board. Now, this one is a little bit different because in Module 5, you're going to do some peer review. Okay, so you're going to be you're going to be like looking at each other's work, and you're going to be sharing some feedback with each other. That's in Module 5. At the end of Module 4, when you turn in your half draft, you're also going to post it on this. Please make sure you do both, okay? You submit your half draft over here on that assignment, and then you post it here on the discussion board as well. You're going to do two. Remember to do both of those, please. This one is not due until the end of the week or when you turn in your half draft, okay? And there are no responses or anything to do yet, okay? We will do that in Module number 5. So on here, what you are going to do then, okay, just post it. All you got to do is post it, okay? All you got to do is copy it, paste it. Now, the one, something I do like to remind people of is that when you copy and paste, you do lose some of that formatting, and we totally understand that, okay? We understand that we're going to lose that formatting. When we do the peer review, the formatting is not part of the responses or the feedback that you will get. All right, so that's module number 4. That is our next big thing to be doing. Again, you guys are doing really well. You're keeping up. It is summer. I get it. But you guys are doing a great job staying up with everything. I know that this assignment is a little bit more difficult, not because of the content or what you're doing, but just because it's something that's going to be a little bit more unfamiliar to some of you, okay? As always, make sure you're reaching out. If you have any questions and you need anything, please make sure you're reaching out so that I can help you. And good luck, everybody.